Trinidad and Tobago looks to secure a contingent of medical professionals from Cuba. The presidents of Russia and Venezuela coordinate mutual cooperation on a telephone call. And Antigua and Barbuda cancels its carnival celebrations due to the global coronavirus crisis. Hello and welcome to Telesur. I'm Carla González in Quito, and this is from the South. Presidents Nicolas Maduro and Vladimir Putin spoke by telephone on Monday morning. The two spoke about joint efforts to combat COVID-19 as well as about their mutual cooperation projects. President Maduro thanked Russia on behalf of the Venezuelan people for the donation of thousands of diagnostic test kits, while President Putin assured that more supplies can be expected. Venezuelan Vice President for Communications Jorge Rodriguez offered a report on the ongoing battle against the COVID-19 pandemic on Sunday. Venezuela has now confirmed 256 cases.
We have to report 29 new cases discovered over the last 24 hours, 3 of whom are people who crossed the border with Colombia. At the border crossing, where we maintain strict health screenings, we detect these 3 cases. There are also 5 new cases in Miranda State, where a source of the virus has been detected. As 3 of the new cases are people who work security for an important national company.
And Rodriguez also announced a curfew for the state of Nuevo Sparta effective Sunday night. This in hopes of stopping a COVID-19 outbreak that started at a baseball training academy.
President Nicolas Maduro Moros has taken the decision to decree a curfew that must be respected by all in the state of Nueva Sparta, which begins today at 8 p.m. until tomorrow at 10 a.m. And from tomorrow, April 20th, there will be a curfew from 4 p.m. on April 20th until 10 a.m. on April 21st. And that curfew will remain in effect until the authorities can inform the country that the road has been controlled, or all cases have been detected.
And President Nicolas Maduro said that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the date for parliamentary elections to be held this year remains uncertain. He spoke to La Pizarra Radio and highlighted that these elections need to take place in 2020.
At this point, I really don't know if there are going to be parliamentary elections this year because we have this priority, the pandemic, and it will be irresponsible for me to say there is absolutely has to be elections. It will be irresponsible. The election for the National Assembly is obligatory. According to the Constitution, it has to happen in 2020 this year because on January 5, 2021, the new National Assembly has to take up its role by constitutional mandate.
The Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, has reiterated calls for an end to sanctions imposed against Cuba and Venezuela amid the COVID-19 pandemic. This as he expressed the belief that the U.S. has sent warships and troops in the Caribbean Sea to intimidate Venezuela.
I don't think that the United States will be taking any military action against Venezuela. They reckon that they have increased their presence within the Caribbean Sea to deal with narco trafficking. And it may be a form of intimidation, but I doubt it will escalate to that level. At the CARICOM level, at a meeting that we held recently, we all agreed that the U.S. should reconsider its position against Venezuela and Cuba. I mean, during this time of crisis, they need to lift those sanctions and to bring some relief to the people of Cuba and Venezuela.
For the first time in 63 years, Antigua and Barbuda has canceled its carnival celebrations due to the global coronavirus crisis. The festivities were scheduled to be held from July 23rd to August 4th. The government will instead focus on preparing for Carnival 2021, which will coincide with the hosting of Carifesta 15. Last month, Guyana announced the cancellation of its carnival, and Jamaica, St. Martin, and the Bahamas postponed theirs too. Trinidad and Tobago is working with Cuba to facilitate a contingent of medical professionals who will assist the nation in the fight against COVID-19.
Initially, 9 was supposed to come in. For personal reasons, I think one or two backed out for personal reasons. That ended up working to our advantage because then we had to re-interview, and now about 12 are coming in. The work permits have been secured. We got the cost of the flight from Cuba, and we are just waiting for the Cuban embassy to go ahead and bring them here.
Medical specialists from the Cuban Henry Reef Brigade arrived in Honduras on Sunday. The group of 16 were seen on the runway at the Ramon Villeda Morales Airport in San Pedro Sula. They were greeted by a round of applause for their assistance as Honduras takes on COVID-19. This brigade includes 4 emergency specialists, 2 epidemiologists, 6 intensive care nurses, and 4 biomedical technicians. Brazil's far-right President Jair Bolsonaro has once again spoken out against social distancing to combat COVID-19, saying that Brazilians should not cower in the face of the virus. During a rally in Brasilia, Bolsonaro called on his supporters to break the quarantine, in direct contradiction of the recommendations of the World Health Organization and most experts. Our correspondent in Brazil, Vladimir, has the latest.
For over 2 months now, since the coronavirus pandemic first arrived in Brazil, far-right President Jair Bolsonaro has been flagrantly disobeying World Health Organization guidelines and going out every Saturday and Sunday to visit areas where crowds have gathered, markets, bakeries, places on the street where people are selling food, in the city of Brasilia, as he urges his followers to disobey the state governor's quarantine orders. Yesterday was no different. The far-right president visited a small protest in front of the National Army headquarters, where some 300 far-right protesters had gathered in a call for the government to shut down the Supreme Court and Congress in memory of Institutional Act 5. AI 5, as it was called, took place in December 1968, when the military dictatorship made a move to shut down Congress and deny Brazilian citizens the right to habeas corpus. Brazilian journalists, however, were quick to note that during Bolsonaro's speech to his followers, he was coughing frequently, he looked tired and weak. As he becomes more and more isolated politically, this act is being interpreted as an act of desperation, appealing to his ever-shrinking far-right base.
From Brazil, that was Vladimir. We'll take a short break now. Join us again in a minute. Welcome back. More news at this hour. 18 people were killed in the Canadian province of Nova Scotia as a 51-year-old man embarked on a shooting rampage. The man was identified as Gabriel Wortman. Authorities said he disguised himself as a police officer and mocked up a car to make it seem like he belonged to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Police shut down the suspect at a gas station, later announcing he died.
I hear the shots and I look out and there's a guy running back and forth up beside the what looks to be a police vehicle.
Something that I never ever expect to happen here, this close to home. It's scary, very scary situation.
5 people have died in a stampede when displaced people were receiving aid in northeastern Nigeria. The dead include women and children, who are the largest group of the hundreds of people displaced by militant attacks in the city of Gamboru. The area has been repeatedly targeted by Boko Haram insurgents since August 2014. At least 4 people have been killed and several are missing after heavy rains caused flash floods in Kenya. Rescue workers were still searching for other 23 people who went missing after a river burst its banks and floods of water swept through the Rift Valley region. Chesogon town was submerged, leaving over 400 families homeless.
23 people cannot be traced. Those are the ones we are searching for. Their families have come forward to report that they are missing, and we have found many injured that have been taken to the hospital for treatment.
Confirmed COVID-19 cases in the African continent have reached almost 22,600. So far, the number of people who have died from the virus was 1,128, while almost 5,800 have recovered. African countries have continued putting in place measures to combat the pandemic, with countries like Morocco roping in the army to spearhead the fight against COVID-19.
Since the beginning of the pandemic, the military hospital in particular has of course adopted a strategy for the care of COVID-19 patients.
Health workers in Malawi have stopped working in protest over lack of medical equipment and demanding a pay rise. Several patients had to be turned away at Kamuzu Central Hospital in the capital Lilongwe. Health workers, including doctors, refused to work until the government provides them with personal protective equipment and better pay in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic.
I came here on March 16 and my child was operated on March 20th. Up to now, the wound is not healing and was supposed to go back to the theater today, but this has failed because doctors are on strike.
Authorities in South Africa who are struggling to contain the coronavirus are now facing a new challenge. As communities struggle to cope with life under the current lockdown, several cases of looting and break-ins at shops and stores have been reported. CGTN's René del Carm has more.
Social media images of looting in some of Cape Town's poorer communities have become a trend during the lockdown year. Many who have no income at the moment are battling to put food on the table. And the ban on alcohol and tobacco sales has led to break-ins at grocery and liquor stores.
I think it's a mixture of desperation and criminality. There are certainly some people who are struggling badly now. The lockdown has unintended financial consequences. The immediate food security and the inability to have money because of the lockdown. And for those people, the poverty and the lack of food is an immediate reality, not a distant risk.
Authorities have urged small retailers to take extra precautions to secure their property, even encouraging liquor outlets to move their alcohol stocks to safer provincial government warehouses during the lockdown.
Important to note that we did talk to some businesses about things that they could do to make themselves safe in terms of additional security, additional burglar bars, closing any security doors you may have and serving through those security doors, as many businesses are doing. And also, in the case of liquor stores, transporting the content of the store to a place for safekeeping.
Nearly 1,000 arrests have been made during the past 3 weeks, more than 50 of them in connection with the looting. And there's growing concern about people not adhering to the lockdown laws to help flatten the coronavirus curve.
I think we have deteriorating levels of compliance. South Africa's infection rates have bucked the international trends. We've not had the same take-up of infections. We've often had a linear and not exponential growth. And so everybody expected a lot of sick people. Now there are not sick people, and I think a lot of people are now relaxing their commitment to the lockdown.
Meanwhile, the mass screening and testing for COVID-19 and raising awareness about the imminent threat of infection have all been stepped up.
These are our volunteers who are at home, and they're offering up their time and effort to come. So they go out in groups of 30 to 40, and they go out into the communities talking about the need for hygiene, the issue around social distancing, and just general prevention and awareness. So it's proved to be invaluable.
City of Cape Town officials have warned the people of the Western Cape not to become too complacent about the COVID-19 lockdown, especially since South Africa is still expected to see a surge in the number of people infected with the disease in the coming months. René del Carm, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
Qatar has started using plasma for recovered COVID-19 patients to help in the treatment of some critical cases. Some of the recovered patients are donating around 600 milliliters of blood twice a week. Doctors are then extracting plasma from the blood, which is transfused to those in a critical condition as part of their treatment. The practice has started after Chinese scientists proved that the plasma from recovered patients could work for 70% of infected patients, but the treatment is still in its experimental phase.
As far as we are aware, it was the American forces that hindered the legal and normal patrolling by our forces in the region, and this pushed our forces react and give them a necessary warning. We urge the foreign forces that are illegitimately present in our region to first leave the region and second to respect maritime and sea traffic rules in this region.
More stories coming up. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Thank you for joining us again. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his rival Benny Gantz have agreed on a power-sharing deal. According to the agreement, set to last for 3 years, Netanyahu will be Prime Minister for the first half, while Gantz will take over for the last one. Gantz's party will control a number of senior government ministries, which includes Foreign Affairs and Defense, while Netanyahu will control the other ministries, which include the judiciary. Spain has announced the lowest number of daily deaths due to COVID-19. According to authorities, 399 patients died over the past 24 hours, the lowest figure in 4 weeks.
Today we have a total of 2,881 new cases. This is the first time in a long time that we have gone below 3,000 cases. These 2,881 new cases represent an increase of 15% over yesterday's cases. That's a very good figure. But don't forget that today is Monday, and weekends, there are always delays. Furthermore, for the first time, we have dropped below 400 deaths, although 399 deaths is a little bit below that. This gives us hope.
And several European countries, including the United Kingdom, have started reopening as they ease down lockdown measures imposed to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Italy, one of the countries worst affected by the virus, has also begun gradually lifting measures. A few people have been seen visiting libraries and small shops. From this Monday, Germany has allowed the reopening of small shops, but the government is taking precautions before fully lifting the lockdown imposed to control COVID-19. Stores smaller than 800 square meters welcome customers for the first time in a month. However, Chancellor Angela Merkel has reminded citizens that social distancing must be observed. Currently, Germany has over 141,000 confirmed cases and over 4,000 deaths. And Norway has started relaxing some of its measures to combat the novel coronavirus. Nursery schools have begun to reopen as authorities say the viral illness is under control and less likely to affect children.
Of course, you don't want to put your kids in front of anything to try anything, but I see that the other Scandinavian countries have had their schools open, at least Sweden and Iceland and Finland. And so all the governments and experts say that kids aren't really exposed that much to the virus, so we just trust that and see how it goes.
U.S. crude oil has plunged below $0 on Monday for the first time in history, ending the day at minus $37.63 a barrel, as desperate traders paid to get rid of oil. This has been attributed to low demands as a result of lockdown measures put in place by several countries to stem the spread of the novel coronavirus. It is unclear whether that will trickle down to consumers, who typically see lower oil prices translate into cheaper gasoline. And people from abroad, from the Caribbean as well, are sending their solidarity to Venezuela and Cuba amid new attacks from the United States, which have not decreased even with the COVID-19 pandemic.
We in the progressive movement in Trinidad and Tobago, we once again stand with the Venezuelan people, a people who continuously are undergoing unfair sanctions by the U.S. government, impeding access to medicine, even during these difficult times of the coronavirus pandemic. We also join the people of the Americas who cry out for peace as the government of President Nicolas Maduro continues to battle on. We therefore call on the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the heads of CARICOM to intervene and send a resounding message that the Caribbean region must remain a zone of peace. While the globe shifts all energy to focus on health, and Venezuela joins Cuba in taking their medical aid abroad to save lives of people everywhere, the United States continues to rear its anarchist head of war as it remains a beacon, not of hope, but of death and destruction under the leadership of President Donald Trump. We therefore join the Venezuelan people and global progressive forces as we state now is a time of international solidarity. It is not a time of imperialism and war. Venezuelan comrades, we stand with you as we say, Unidad, lucha, batalla y victoria, venceremos.
We here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines will continue to strengthen our ties with the progressive people. We stand firm in our fight against imperialistic bullying. You can be assured to know that our Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph E. Gonsalves, is in this battle and will remain. The voices of our NGOs, grassroots and working class national says, Trump no more. Hands off Venezuela. Enough is enough.
And with that, we end our news brief. But you can find these and many other stories by checking our website, telesurenglish.net. And be sure to find us and follow us on social media. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Until next time.